Welcome to Free Media. I'm Robby Soave, and today I'm joined by the Hill's Niall Stanage. Nice to be with you again, Niall.
A delight to be with you here at Reason, Robby, as always. How are you?
Absolutely. I'm so well, and I can't wait to discuss one of our favorite subjects, something you and I have talked about on Rising quite a bit, Kamala Harris and the demise of Joe Biden's presidency and questions about whether he should have run again, which are ones that Kamala Harris herself is grappling with in this excerpt from her new book. So The Atlantic has published this excerpt from the book. It's called 107 Days. In this book, the former vice president is finally giving her side of the story with respect to her 3-month campaign for the presidency.
Of particular interest is her opinion as to whether Biden administration officials should have done more to stop President Biden from running for re-election. Harris writes, quote, "It's Joe and Jill's decision. We all said that like a mantra, as if we'd all been hypnotized. Was it grace or was it recklessness? In retrospect, I think it was recklessness. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego, an individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision."
Reading this excerpt live on the air had Morning Joe momentarily flummoxed, but Scarborough soon regained his countenance and explained why you shouldn't blame him. Biden seemed fine. Watch this.
When I saw him, he was slow. He was, plodding. His neck was stiff. Everything was really stiff. And you're like, walks around slowly. But when he sat down, may have spoken more quietly and more haltingly. But man, I never once saw him where he blanked out. Never once saw him where, I will just say, a lot of people in this administration, I haven't seen a lot of people in this administration that could have kept up with him on foreign policy, especially when he started talking about foreign policy, because he'd been doing it for 40, 45 years. So again, I think that's the big lie that came out of the whole Biden campaign.
So these two were really thrown by the excerpt that got read earlier. They're like, who wants to discuss this? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you want to discuss this. No one at the panel discussion did. So what is your reaction to what Harris puts in this excerpt?
So my initial reaction is I think the chances of Kamala Harris running in 2028 have increased a bit, having read this excerpt.
Oh, she's in it.
She is in it. Now, whether the Democratic Party has a large number of people chomping at the bit for another Kamala Harris campaign, I am skeptical about that. I mean, obviously people of a more conservative bent simply disagree with her, and that's fine. I think even among people who are ideologically more sympathetic to her, there are real questions about Kamala Harris's political prowess. I mean, back in 2020, for example, that campaign was very underwhelming. It was launched with this massive fanfare out in Oakland. She ended up dropping out before the Iowa caucuses. Now, what she seems to me to be trying to do here is sort of exculpate herself from the kind of debacle of the very end of the Biden presidency. She refers to the infamous debate performance of his now as a debacle. We just read the relevant excerpt there where she's sort of saying, well, we should have said more. Well, maybe. I mean, we've all done things that in retrospect we would have done differently, but is it about that sincere rethinking, or is it trying to thread a needle to make a future presidential bid more viable?
That's exactly what I say. Honestly, it's characteristic of her whole approach to politics and just communications in general, and it is not a good one. It is one that doesn't resonate well with the American people. I was kind of blown away by how underwhelming this excerpt was. It's not interesting writing. It's not very engaging. I almost think, did she write this herself? Did she not have a ghostwriter do this? Because it does sound like her, and that's not a compliment. It sounds kind of wishy-washy. And on this very fundamental question, a question that she has to resolve in a satisfactory way if she wants to run for president. If she doesn't want to anymore, she doesn't have to say anything. But clearly, to your point, she does. She needs to go harder in one direction. She's trying, again, to be all things to all people, explain herself without offending anyone, including Joe Biden and his people. She does not throw him under the bus very aggressively in this. She says, well, in retrospect, we should have said more. We shouldn't have just left it to them to decide. That is not a very strong condemnation of what happened, especially compared to where much of the Democratic Party is now, where much of the mainstream media, liberal media is. She didn't go hard. And she also didn't just fully go the other way and said, nope, we were right to make this call because only Biden could beat Trump and he was the candidate. And I'm sorry, that decision was made. It was too late. She could have done that. She didn't do that either. She was trying to make everyone happy, and so no one will be happy.
Well, to that exact point, I think one of the things that makes Kamala Harris not a great fit for this political moment in particular is that she is kind of cautious and calculated, and she will tack one way if that seems to be the spirit of the moment. Then the spirit of the moment changes and she tacks the other way. And that obviously leads to questions about authenticity. I think that is brought up in this. We're in a moment right now that I don't think rewards that kind of approach. I mean, it might have done in a sort of Bill Clinton kind of era, but now I think there is more of a public appetite, whether it's people on the right or whether it's a Bernie Sanders or an AOC, who are more forthright. Zoran Mamdani, for example, who I know we'll talk about later. So I think there's that element of it. The other point, which is a bit narrower to Harris's particular sort of personality traits, is that she kind of relitigates this grievance she has that the Biden team didn't defend her aggressively. Now, this is way before he dropped out of the race, but she has some objection that the White House didn't do that. And it's like...
that they gave her tough jobs. And then they didn't send anyone from their team to help me. Look, they got to hold your hand.
Right.
You're the second most powerful, prominent political figure in the Democratic Party, and you need help for how to hold a press conference or how to do effective messaging on the need to grapple with immigration or whatever it is, and you need that much. It came across as really not good for her.
No, and the fact of the matter is that she, like any vice president, has her own entire team, or had her own entire team, to do exactly that stuff. And then she talks about the fact that on immigration, she relitigates all of that, saying, well, I
was the border czar or the...
Exactly. And it's like, I don't really get, how that ultimately helps her. Now, we'll see when the book comes out. One of the things that I'm going to be intrigued by is not so much the sales, because I think it'll sell respectably, but will there be evidence in terms of the number of people showing up to see her that there's a real appetite for Kamala Harris? I mean, we have at times seen that with other when Obama was just beginning his rise, there was like book tours and he got big crowds and all of that. I still come back to the fact that I don't think there is an enormous body of support within the Democratic Party that really wants to see Kamala Harris run for, I was going to say second, but would actually be third time.
So much of the other stuff in the excerpt, it's not the whole book. Maybe the rest of the book contains some interesting nuggets of personality, because the personality matters as a political figure.
Sure.
It's very paint by numbers, the other stuff in this excerpt, that's the things that speak to her. I can't imagine this of being of general interest to the American public. Even very politically interested people, it's not specific enough. It's very like, insert this notable Democratic thinker here, insert this campaign anecdote here, in a very unoriginal and uninspiring way. I don't mean to beat up on her this much. I don't have anything personally against her, but I just don't think she has the attributes that make you a successful national political figure in our day. Now, all that said, the Democratic Party does not have a deep, in my view, a very powerful roster of really well-known, really well-liked figures on the national level. She has a lot of name recognition, and I think people underrate how much it is a name recognition game. So despite all of the flaws we just discussed, I would not count her out. I think if she makes a bid, she could be maybe not the front. She'll be in the top 3 candidates from the beginning, just on the basis of her name recognition.
Yeah, and the fact that she ran previously obviously gives her a fundraising network as well, which, as we know, is very important. To be fair, I'll say this in defense of her. The one debate that she had with Trump, I thought she won clearly during that election campaign. And I don't even say that as someone who is critical of Trump. I think that, his reluctance to debate her again spoke to the fact that she did do well there. It's just the fact you and I have spoken before about this idea that, oh, she only had 107 days. That's not really borne out by the polls, which kind of went like that over time. There isn't a lot of evidence to suggest that.
It's only been a 3-day campaign.
Yeah, exactly. If she had just walked off the Democratic National Convention stage and into the polling booth, she would quite possibly have won. But that wasn't the way it worked out.
All right, we'll have more free media right after this. Stay tuned.